So with the introduction, this module will provide the learners an understanding of change management, and we will see how to raise and process change requests in ServiceNow. These are as far as the practical exercises are concerned. And we will also definitely be covering the theory about the different types of change, which is normal, standard, and emergency, and what are they. And we will touch base on how notifications are sent out, what sort of notifications are sent out, and also the access control list for change. Right. By end of this course, these are very theoretical objectives, which says you should be able to understand the three different type of change requests, know how and when the notification and ACL, the access control list, is used, and perform specific steps in the system. But I do feel this is a little too demanding, especially if you are not doing your UAT. I know most of you are doing your UAT, so this is just an additional session for you. But otherwise, I would say if you can navigate around in the system and be more confident in asking questions, be more confident in clearing your doubts, then that is the takeaway of the day. It's because you just remember the first day when you tried to do your spreadsheet, your Excel work, or the first day when you opened your MS Word document. You could not perform a lot of functions. It came by practice. And most of us are from the same industry. So you know that for any software, for any new system to learn, it just comes by practice. I can show you navigation. I can show you how to create change request in a couple of hours, but you are not going to become an expert in that. So the better thing to do is navigate around, understand the scenarios. This is the right forum to ask the questions and clarify your doubts. If your concepts are clear, navigation will help you in the future. So change management, we know what change management is. Change management provides systematic approach to control the life cycle of all the changes, facilitating the beneficial changes to be made with minimum disruption to IT services. And with the change management also supports the three types of service changes in uniting, which is standard, emergency, and normal. The change type determines which state model is invoked and the change process that must be followed. For each and every change process mentioned here, which is standard, emergency, and normal, there will be a set of states and there will be a different process flow. So let's directly jump into those. We'll start with the standard change. So there is some theory mentioned here. Other than that, I would like to put them in three buckets in such a way that whenever we are talking about a standard change, just remember that there is going to be a template which you can use. When we are talking about an emergency sort of a change request, always remember that this will directly go to your change advisory board for approvals. And when we are talking about the normal change request, it will go through a two-layer approval process. So these three are the basic distinct factors between these three change requests. And other than that, let's see what each of them constitutes of. A standard change is a pre-authorized change that is low risk, relatively common, and follows a very specified procedure or work instruction. And because of this, it has a pre-developed template as well. Approved standard change requests can be predefined in a catalog of templates to make assessing and requesting a standard change more efficient. This ability also enables the change management team to control the changes that are authorized as standard. So if you are across BI reporting, there are cubes which need to be refreshed. So this is a periodic activity which has to happen. And usually this is a very good example of a standard change request. If you have a template predefined for it, then during the lower times, during the times when there is a downtime with the system, at that time we can implement these changes. Standard changes are managed by service request flows within ServiceNow. So the state overview for standard change, we will see the definitions of each a little later in the normal change request slide. It has a new state, it has a scheduled state. We can implement a standard change. From implement, we can cancel. We will see this when we are doing the practical exercises. A review can be done, and then it can be closed. As I said, we'll see the definition a bit later. So don't complicate yourself, or don't get confused with such a complicated process flow. The only thing which you need to remember that with a standard change request, you can use a predefined template, and then this will allow you to go into a form with predefined or pre-filled fields, and then you can submit this request. So other than that, with an external process, if a service request is raised, at this time you can raise a new change request in an approved template if you are a requester or implementer. And as you can see, most of the chunky activities are happening in this swim diagram. Uh, Once the change awaiting is scheduled, it can be implemented on the scheduled date, and a task can be generated automatically. Confirm After that, there is a review stage where we confirm the success of the change, and then perform a review, and then we can close the change request. Again, this is not a very complicated activity. As we will see in the system a little later, it is pretty linear if you ask me. Emergency change, a change that must be implemented as soon as possible. For example, to resolve a major incident or implement a security patch. It is of such a high priority that it bypasses group and peer review and approval and goes straight to the authorization state for approval by Change Advisory Board CAB. And while I'm talking about emergency change, I'd like to give you a real life scenario example. This is not from Uniting, but just a couple of months back, I was working with another client called Lion, and they had this big cyber threat. So at that time, we were asked not to use our VPN at all. And there was a workaround which was created as an emergency, and we were using the Amazon Workspace or the AWS. So this is a typical example of an emergency change which was implemented there. So likewise, I'm sure we will have examples in Uniting itself. Let's talk about that as we do the practical exercises. Emergency changes cover the following types of emergencies: fix, on fail, or retroactive situations where the impact to service has already been experienced, or fail situations where the impact to service is imminent if action is not taken. These changes do not follow the complete life cycle of a normal change due to the speed with which they must be authorized. So they need to be much faster as far as resolution is concerned. And therefore, they progress directly to the authorized state for approval for the CAB. The same state overviews here: new, authorized, scheduled, implement, review, and closed. Let's see definitions a little later. A very similar process flow as to the standard or the normal one, except for the authorized part, this vertical here, where as we raise a change request, it directly goes to CAB for an authorization, and once authorized, the other steps of implementation and review are pretty much the same. And then we come to normal change. So any service request which is not a standard change, which is not coming from a template, or which is not emergency, is generally a normal change. Now, normal change requests follow prescriptive process, which requires 2 levels of approval. So multiple stages of approval before being implemented, reviewed, and closed. These changes require a full range of assessments and authorizations too, such as peer or technical approval, change management, and CAB approvals, CAB authorizations, to ensure completeness, accuracy, and the least possible disruption to the services. These changes are most often scheduled outside of defined change blackout windows or during defined maintenance windows. The normal type is to use to implement beneficial change for any change to a service that is not a standard or an emergency change. Here is when we can see the different type of definitions to your states. So a new state will say that the change request is not yet submitted for review and authorization. A requester can save a change request as many times as necessary while building out the details of a change prior to submission. So this is when it will be at the new state. prior to submission. Assess. This is the stage where there will be a peer review and technical approval of the change details are performed during this stage. During the authorization stage, change management and CAP schedule the change and provide final authorization to proceed further. Schedule is a scheduled start date. So this is when the change is fully scheduled and authorized and is waiting for the planned start date. An email notification is sent out to the user who requested this change. Implement is the planned start date has approached and the actual work to implement the change has been conducted. An email notification is sent out once again to the user who has requested the change. Then there will be a review change when the implementation is done, and this will be reviewed as the work has been completed or not. The change requester determines whether the change was successful or not as well. And then we can close the change request once all the review work is complete. There is another state called cancelled. A change can be cancelled at any point when it is no longer required. However, a change cannot be cancelled from a closed state. And in this case, an email notification is sent to the user as well. So very briefly, we covered normal, emergency, and standard change. What as an end user you have to remember here is, once again, I'll keep on repeating this. With standard, you will have predefined templates which you can choose from. With emergency, the authorization or the approval directly goes to CAP. And with normal, you will have multiple level of approvals and authorizations. So far, any questions?
No questions.
Excellent. So now let's make this a little more interesting. Who is ready to give me an example of a standard change in Uniting? Other than Greg. Greg is the manager. He is definitely going to know. Who can tell me an example of a standard change? Come on, there are no wrong answers. There are only wrong trainers. So you can always blame it on the EY team, Leo and me. Hello. I myself give you an example of cube refresh, which happens because of which we have a template. So can you think of any other scenario for which we can develop a template and which can be used as a standard change? Okay, Greg, over to you.
What we could probably do, so Sonia probably has one, but she's not. Anything that we probably get the DBAs to do now with databases that are routine can probably become the standard change. So occasionally we have to maybe correct a record, run a script to correct a record. So as long as we're following the same process each time, we can use that as a standard change. So
excellent. And who can tell me a good scenario for an emergency change? I hope nobody's sleeping already. Okay, let me nominate someone then. Kishore.
Okay, so when there is a P1 and then the Windows servers are down, you need to restart them. You need an emergency change. Just an example.
Very good. Simple and effective. Right. And a normal change. Okay, Greg, you can do the honors.
Normal change would be a piece of work, might be applying some patches to a server that needs to be updated. It might be changing the functionality of the way a couple of redundant servers work, changing their availability, high availability. So
okay,
that sort of thing. Upgrading an application.
Perfect. Right. So these are some examples. There are so many other examples because we are talking about software and hardware disruptions. There can be so many issues here. The simplest issue which comes to my mind is we talked about this issue yesterday as well. VPN not connecting. Now that we are all in uh, internet-based world, a virtual world whereby network is the most important aspect, and VPN stops working, if you just get one incident of a VPN not working, probably you will solve it. Then you will get a couple of incidents of VPN not working. Probably it's a problem. And then this problem can become a major incident. And from that, we come to a situation whereby we need to probably, I don't know, change the server or some advanced sort of a problem whereby we will probably replace the entire client itself. So this can be easily mapped in the change request scenario as well, whereby if the entire application itself is changing, it can be a big change. If the implementation is not very urgent, it can be taken as a standard chain. But if the turnover needs to be really fast, we can implement as an emergency change. So frankly, it just depends upon the scenario or the situation where you are, and the same item can be treated as a standard or an emergency change. So let's move forward and know a bit about notifications and access control lists. So with ServiceNow, the users will have a benefit of automatic notifications sent via email to the recipients. And we have mentioned different scenarios here by which what sort of trigger will happen and who will be the recipients of this notification. So we have a scenario of notifying the change calendar, a change assigned to me when you are working on the change yourself, change assigned to the group, change commented, and so on. So we have a couple of pages here. You can refer to this, and depending on the scenario, the recipients are going to get a notification. Access control list is the list of permissions attached to, well, it's change management and knowledge articles, which is controlled by the ACL. ACL is in your writing is mentioned as below. For the change request, we have different types: create, delete, read, and write. And depending on the roles, we will have different description and user capacity in the system. So that was a very, very short explanation of what we are going to cover today. Any questions once again, or else can we directly start working on the system, the practical exercises? Right. So I'll take it as no questions. Just give me a moment so that I can log into the system and get ready for the practical exercises. Okay, so at this stage, can I ask all the participants to log into your systems? Let me know if you can log into your systems with your SSO. If you need help, do you know how to log into the systems? If you have any query, just let me know and we can help you with it.
Done.
Thank you, Greg. How about everybody else? Okay.
Just trying, hang on.
Sure. And with change, we are just going to use the backend or the native view or UI 16. So we don't need to log into the employee services portal. So while you are logging on, just let's do a brainstorming as to how we can create a change in the system. The simple thing is directly going to the backend and creating a change from the backend directly. The system itself will give you an option of whether you want to create an emergency, standard, or a normal change request. We'll touch base upon those. And the other way to do is you can create a change from a problem directly. When I mentioned about the VPN scenario a little earlier, at that time, if we have a problem open regarding a scenario which requires a change request, we can directly create a change from that as well. So these are some scenarios which are going to cover in today's training. Let me know once everybody is ready with the login, or if anybody is having any trouble, let me know as well. We'll try to fix that. Okay, I gather that all of us have logged into the system. So the first scenario is we'll just take a very simple scenario of the BI reports not functioning correctly due to a cube refresh error. A change request is required to reset the cube elements and reset it. Please create a change request to address this problem. Please also proceed and close the request, assuming that the change manager has approved this request. We do have Greg with us today, so when we submit it for approval, it will go to him. He can approve the change request and we can keep proceeding with the process. So let's try the scenario in the system. I'm going to run a demo first, and then you can all try it yourself. So from the backend, we are going to use the file navigator. The top left end with a yellow space where you can type in any item to search for it is called the file navigator. In this file navigator, if I put incident, then it will give me incident related application and modules. If I put problem, it will give me problem related application and modules. Do mind that if you have access to these applications, you will be able to see it. If you don't have access or authorization for these applications, you won't be able to see it. Today, we are going to talk about change request management. So in the file navigator field, I'm going to type change. And under the change applications, I have different modules: create, open, closed, all, overview. We will see all of these items one by one. Let's say I'm clicking on create new. The system itself will prompt you what sort of a change request you want to create. Do you want to create a normal change request? It will give you a short definition of what it means as well. Can somebody tell me the difference of what I've been repeating since morning? I'll tell you once again, and I'll ask you after a while so that you remember. Normal means multiple level of authorizations or approvals. Standard means we have to remember that it comes from a template. And emergency means that the approval is directly going to CAB. At some point in the training later today, I'll ask you these questions. So let's say we are going to create a normal change request to start with. And sorry, Leo, I'm using your login credentials because you have admin rights. Sorry for that. So that I don't have to wait for Greg's approval. I can approve the change myself. So in this case, let's say we are creating a change request for the BI report scenario, which I just talked about from the slide. I'm going to choose the appropriate service here. Let's say it's BI reporting. Now, If you know about the configuration item, because this is related to change, this can be related to the configuration item as well. I myself am not across all the configuration items or what is generic and what is not in Uniting, but if you do, then it is highly recommended that you add the information about the configuration item in the change. I'll put a short description. And let's see if I can submit this change without putting any other field. So in case you have not filled all the mandatory fields which are required, the system is going to throw this error to you that fill all the mandatory fields. And in this case, it's telling that the planned start date is still not filled. So if you scroll down, you will see that the asterisk is against the schedule tab. We will go inside and see that there is a planned start date mentioned here, which is a mandatory field. Any red asterisk means you have to, it's a mandatory field and you will have to fill it. The black asterisk also means that it's a mandatory field, but the description is also already filled in there. So let's give it a start date somewhere in the future. Let's say 8th. Let's also give an end date because it's not a big deal. The BI report team says that they can manage the change in a couple of hours. So we are going to keep it as, let's say, like this. And let's see if we can submit the change now. Right. So if I open the change again. Now let's try to understand the screen with respect to the state overview which we saw in the slides. On the top of the screen is the header data, of course. And on the right of the screen, right of the header data, you will have several buttons which will help you with the progress of the case. Other than that, there is a linear item in the middle, which will tell you at which stage your change is. At this stage, it is at new stage. The next will be assess, authorize, schedule, and so on. And as we keep on progressing by giving more and more information for the request, we will progress to the next step. So let's progress to the next step here. Let's say I'm going to request this for an approval. And it immediately tells me that I have to assign a group here. So let's say I'm going to change it to the change manager because this is a change request and request approval. So now I'm in the SS state. The new state is complete. It's been refreshed to the SS state. This is where the change request is being assessed by the manager. And after assessing, the manager is going to approve it. And you will get information which says the change is now waiting for approval. And in the bottom of the screen, we have several tabs, which is change task approvers, problems, affected CIs. We'll talk about these tabs a bit later, but what I want to show you is the approver tab. So this is this change is waiting for approval will go to this mentioned manager here. So in this case, it's gone to Greg for approval, but Leo has the admin rights, so I'm going to approve this myself. You may not be able to perform this step. Don't worry, Leo will Greg will approve it for you. So I'm going to approve this change request. Let's say I've assessed it as a manager and it has required the cube to be reset, and I'm going to approve it. So as a manager, Greg is approved, and then it has gone to the cab. So this is where the normal change request comes in. As I said, with normal, what you have to remember is multiple approvers. With standard, what do you have to remember? Anyone? Anyone? Normal, multiple approvers, standard, template, emergency, CAB. Yeah, exactly. So if you can remember this, these direct relations, it will be much easier for you to understand the concept. Again, normal, multiple approvers, standard, template, emergency, CAB. So now the manager has approved this, but it requires more approvals. Is because this is a normal sort of a change request. So it's gone to the CAB. CAB has certain members. I'm going to open this and approve this as well. Now, there is a rule set in the background that at least 2 managers from the CAB have to approve it. So still it isn't waiting for approval stage, even after 1 manager from CAB has approved it. So I'm going to go in and approve as a second CAB manager. And then you will see that stage is gone. And now I've come in the schedule state. So now the change has been assessed and authorized by the managers. In this case, who are the managers? The change manager, Greg, and the CAB team. They have approved and authorized this. Yes. We have assessed this change. We feel that the kube refresh reset has to happen. They are happy with the planned and start date. And now we are in the schedule state.
Just for those approvals, though, more people could say approve it, but only 2 people are required to change the state. But effectively, everyone listed there could approve it. Correct?
Sorry, I didn't.
So at the moment, we've got for approvals, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 names.
Yep.
All right. So we only need 2 people to approve it. So
yes.
That's the rule.
Yep.
But if another person approved it, a third person approved it, they could still approve it there, couldn't they? Or not?
They could.
Yeah. Yes. So
possible.
Yeah. So everyone can approve it.
Yeah.
But it only needs 2.
Yes. So for progressing to the next stage, it requires only 2, but any person can approve it. You are right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So at this stage, because it's being scheduled for implementation, we are just checking on the plan date and whether everything is perfect here, and just making a second check on all the other items. And let's say we are going to implement the change. So from schedule, we have come to the implement stage. Here we are going to implement the change. At any point of time, if you go down in the tabs here, you will have problems, affected CIs. Now this affected CIs can directly populate if you put the configuration items here, or else if you want to add it here. And likewise with problems. If while we are progressing with the change request, there have been incidents which have been raised as problems, and which can be linked to this particular change request because the solution is the same. You can do so while adding the problems here. Then it goes for a review stage, and eventually you can close with the notes, of course. So here we will have different options. Let's say this time it's successful. The close notes test successful. So this was a very linear sort of a scenario whereby we have just taken a very simple case of kube being refreshed in the normal category. So before proceeding to more complex situations, can we try to do this ourselves? What I want to do is you create a change request which is normal, and follow the similar steps which I have done now. While you are in the system, feel free to browse through the problems tab. For example, I have purposefully not done this myself, but let's see if you can attach one of the problems here. Any problem from the available problems you can pick up and try to attach it and let me know. So let's try this exercise. Let's try to create a change request, progress it, and when it comes to the approval state, let me know. Either me or Greg can approve this for you. And the cab can be approved as well from our side, and then you can proceed to close it. Leo and me are always here to help you, so please raise your concern if you have any. So Leo, just checking if somebody is requiring an approval, can you do it on Greg's behalf or on the cab's behalf?
Yeah, sure, I can do that.
Okay, thanks.
Sanjay Kishore here.
Yes, sir.
Hi. I'm just trying to submit a standard change, and just a quick query. Just correct me if I'm wrong. Is there any lead time for any user to submit a standard change or normal change? Now, how many days prior we have to plan, or no restrictions on the date frames?
Okay, I will deflect this question to the champion.
No, there's no. If you need to raise a change, you raise a change. No lead time
Okay,
required.
Thank you, Greg.
thanks.
Whether it gets approved or not, that's a different question.
Right.
Yes,
I was just
that's
going to say that. So it all depends on Greg then.
So yes, this is training, and I should not be asking you this question, but what thought process goes in approving this change? What assessment is actually being done in the background?
So the short answer is it depends.
Right.
So it's what I look at is what are you going to do and when are you going to do it?
Right.
And,
of course.
and if what you're going to do and you're planning to do it in the middle of the day, if that's going to cause a huge problem, then that's going to require a lot more investigation around its implementation. But if it's being done after hours, it's low risk, and it's quite clear what the change is, then that would be quite easy to approve. So
right. Thank you. Remy, all okay today? How's your browser treating you? Is it freezing today as well?
No, it's going well. It's going well.
Touch wood. Tuesdays are better than Mondays, always.
Yeah, I think so. Mondays are a bit slow.
Yeah, please continue. I started my career as a teacher, so I'm more of a blackboard or a whiteboard person, and I need to see my students or the participants, their expressions to understand whether they're understanding or whether they are coping up, how's the pace and stuff like that. But this is a virtual environment, so really I'm totally dependent on just looking at this silly system all the time. So let me know if I'm fast, if I'm slow, if you are needing more help. Really, I'm just here along with Leo to help you.
I approve to change, Ron.
Thanks, Greg.
So if you are able to progress really effortlessly, I would try to give you another challenge. Let's see if you can create an emergency request or a standard request and see what difference do you face in the system. Again, normal means multiple approvers, standard means template, and emergency means directly cab approval. So can you relate this in the system? Can you try to do this in the system and let me know your findings?
Ron, I just did your cab approvals, so it should be in scheduled phase.
Sanjay Kishore here.
Yes, Kishore.
Yeah. So there are two tasks that got generated for the standard change template that I've used.
Yeah.
Is that appropriate that as soon as I close the tasks, the stage of the change move from implement to review without me clicking on it, or is that expected?
I don't think so, but I'll just confirm that with Leo.
That's expected, Kishore. So basically, there'll be two tasks. One is implementation, post-implementation. Once that's completed, automatically it'll move to the review state.
Okay, because I've created an ad hoc task even before me closing that ad hoc task in implementation. Only after these two tasks I close it more to review. So if that's expected, that's fine. I just created an ad hoc task as well during implementation. Apart from
Okay, let me just check on that. Let me check your change just a second.
Yeah, sure.
Right, I just checked the workflow, Kishore. So basically, it's only the 2 tasks that needs to be generated for the standard change, and automatically when it closes, it moves to the review state. So there's no point of ad hoc tasks there. I think that's what has been decided, and they have configured it that way.
Okay, so even there is an ad hoc task. With these 2 tasks being closed, even there is a third task, you're saying the change will move to review.
Right. So, but the third task was an ad hoc task that you had created, correct?
Yes, yes, just to test the negative test. Sometimes we make extra tasks, right? Apart from the template.
I get that, but I think if that was not decided during the
Okay.
yeah.
Nah, if it is okay with that, I'm fine with that. Thank you.
All right.
One would hope that the person moving it to the review state is the person that's responsible for managing the tasks anyway. So
yeah, so Greg, what I did was there are 2 tasks, automatic ones, 1 and 2, which I've closed. And I was about to close the third one, which I've added intentionally. But before even me closing the task, it moved to review from the implement.
Yeah. So you need to close the task before you move it to review.
I'm saying system automatically moved it to review before even I closed it when I'm attempting to close.
Yeah, so when you so you're saying you completed the 2 compulsory tasks and
yes.
then it moves it to review straight away.
Yeah, even though there is 1 open task.
Yeah. All right. So we'll need to point that out to people.
Yeah, I think Leo, you may need to make a note of that, just to make sure we get proper feedback on that.
Yeah.
Sure, I'll make a note of that. So just one quick question to Greg and Kishore. So I do see that there is implementation task and post-implementation task. So is there going to be any other tasks after the post-implementation task? So shouldn't be a sequential there to close the tasks? First is implement, and then your ad hoc, and finally the post-implementation task?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a negative scenario. That's why I said Leo. But in any case, if there is an ad hoc task, right, we need to check before moving automatically from implement to review. If that is how we need to do it, that's so be it. But just capture a feedback so that we can.
Sure. Yeah, I'll make a note of it.
Yeah, we made a decision just to have 1 implementation task as a minimum. So, but yeah, the fact that behavior occurs, if a person's created like 5 additional tasks and they close the implement task first, then they won't have access to the other tasks.
They do have access at the moment, Greg. They can access the other tasks that are created.
Yeah, but didn't you? It'll move it to the review state, even though they may not have finished the other ones.
Yes, and then the tasks will be dangling around like orphan tasks within the change when you report.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
So there is just one more item which I would like to share with you then. That we create a change from just going to the file navigator on the top left. Again, all this repetition is going to be helpful for you. This is the file navigator. These are the applications, and the modules lie under the applications. So now I'm going to search for, let's say, problem application, and I'm going to go to all. What I'm trying to show you is it's possible to create a change request from change application. From change application, if you go to create new, you can create a normal, standard, or emergency, which the system automatically prompts you. But if you want to create a change from, let's say, a problem, then it is possible as well. Let's say there is a problem for which the fix is in progress. This was created yesterday in the training session by Jenny. So we'll use this as an example. And we understand that this particular problem is now being routed to a change request. So we want to create a change request for the same. In this case, on the top, just under the purple header, the gray header, we right click and we say which sort of a change request we want to create. And in this way, we can directly create a change request from the problem. Let's say in this case, you want to create a normal change request again. So as you can see, the form will directly lead us to a change form now. And in the bottom of the screen, the problem which was selected, where we started to create the change request is already available up for us to see. All the other processes remain exactly the same as it happens in a normal change request. Meanwhile, if you would have created, sorry for that. Yep. So if I proceed with this, it's exactly the same. And then it will go to the approvers. And once the approvers approve it, we will follow the same path as we followed for creating a change request. So this is one more way of creating a change request. And you can try that as well. You can go to problems and pick up any problem and try to create a change request from that. Doesn't matter if it's standard, emergency, or normal, because the rest of the process is going to be exactly the same. Let me know if you are able to do it, because that is the second scenario which we are going to try our hands-on exercise for today. Right, and finally we'll see about the dashboards. So like in any application, we saw incident and problem yesterday for those who were present yesterday, that if we just give the name of the application here, you will get a module called overview, and this is where your dashboards are currently. And even in the case of change, this is the dashboard which are already available. From the dashboard, you can click on an item which will directly take you to the actual change requests. So that's pretty much the end of change request management. It was the shortest topic today. So if you come across some questions, keep posting in the forum, or you can send a mail across to us or to Greg. We'll keep working on it. More information. We'll keep getting more information from Annette and Cam as well. Leo is, of course, here to help us. Thank you, Leo, so much.